What's going on, y'all? It's a weekend morning, and you can tell because I'm sitting in my worn out area of my couch drinking a coffee, and I got my bird. Say hi, Pidgey. Say hey. Say hello. Say hello. Say hello. Okay, he doesn't want to say hi. Anyway, in this video, we are going to be installing all of the stuff needed for ABS wheel speed sensors on the car, essentially. So I hope you like it. All right. Sweet. So, in order to get the ABS in this car, it's going to go through this hole here, the electrical connector. But you can see there's this mount here with two holes in it. And you can see that those two holes go straight through the chassis. That's no bueno because we need to be able to mount the ABS sensor here. It's also going to mount to the knuckle up here, right? And then also down here. And then the actual sensor itself goes here. So we're going to need to either riv nut this in over here, or we're going to need to put bolts in there with nuts on the other side. So I'm going to try and figure out, I think that's the first step in the process.
So I got the grenade one, got the block in there, and I'm ready to put the clutch on. This is the same action. I've used them a couple times over, but if you guys don't know this about me, I've shared it multiple times. My cooking ruins everything. After I torque them to spec, even torque them potential times over spec, clutch that on, you'll save 15% and will help not program going over here. So I appreciate it.
I can't believe you didn't get stuff up.
All right, maybe one of the less sexy aspects of a build, but important nonetheless. I have parted out a couple of cars throughout the years, and I kept all of the hardware organized. And so part of it is just going through and figuring out, which bolts are good enough for this car. Like you can see, I still wanted some of that coating to be on the bolts so that it protects the bolts, but also looks pretty good. So we have to figure out which of these bolts are going to go where, which are going to go in the rid nuts, which are going to go into the knuckles, things like that. So that's kind of next. So I didn't really have all of the bolts that I wanted to make this work, but for these ones down here, I have these bolts that come with washers on them from Honda. For here, it was a relatively short 10mm bolt, and then I found these itty bitty little bolts that go on the top of the knuckle here. They do thread through all the way, which was the biggest concern. All the other bolts were kind of bottoming out. And then over here, we just have, something like this, a normal size, about the same size, maybe a little bit. It's probably a little bit longer than the ones that go here. But I tried to match them from side to side so that when, you're taking the car apart, there's some consistency to it. Yeah, so now we can bolt up the ABS sensor and repeat it on the other side.
Is going to sit in the holes right here in the center for the fuel pump hanger is specific. Here on the adapter, adapted into the 15-gallon fuel cell because it is pretty crusty, and the fuel cell still needs to be modified for the OEM fuel neck that's going to go right here. So I need this to be cleared out so that way we can get all the burrs and stuff to be out of the fuel cell before we. That's how I did it on my blue car. So this is all loose for right now. I don't know if I have any fittings to go here or any bulkheads for wirings to come through because.
Let's get in here and show you what's going on. Okay, on this side now. So you can see that I have all of the bolts marked so that they don't, if they back out, I can tell. But everything, even the grommet is pressed in. These used parts are in pretty good shape. Unfortunately, Honda doesn't make the ABS sensors anymore. Surprise, surprise. Honda not supporting their enthusiasts. Who would have known? But yeah, that's all in. It's all marked, right? So really the next step is probably to get the rear ones on, I guess. So part of the problem with that, though, is that there is a broken bolt in one of these arms, and I believe it's back here. Oh, right there, you see that? So we got to get that out. Hopefully it'll come out of You know, I know that this is a pain, and plus you can see there's no teeth on this hub, so I need to get a new set of rear hubs too if I'm going to run ABS in this car. I should have some in my basement. Hopefully save some money, but you know, if we go back here, so we still got bolts in this one, but again, that's a non-ABS hub. So we had to get the ABS axles, which was fine. I mean, they're from an RSX, so they have the teeth in there, the encoder ring, but the rears do not. So probably go check my stash in the basement and go from there.
Unfortunately, I did not have Integra rear hubs with bearings that were in usable condition. I had some used ones from old trailing arms that were sitting in my basement as spares, but I didn't feel comfortable using them, especially since I took so much time to make sure the rest of this car and all the details were good. So I ended up going on Rock Auto and just buying some SKF brand rear hubs. Timken's work as well, but cheaping out on this stuff usually does not pay dividends in my experience.
Couldn't do it. And then we pull it, and then bam, we try to find pit road lines. What he did is he pulled 2 heats. So if you're in, you never do that. And so just one mental mistake there. Are both of these mental mistakes, or are they kind of?
After removing the crusty wheel hub, I had to get rid of this broken off bolt inside of the rear trailing arm. Originally, I was going to try and drill it out, but I did not have the appropriate extractor. So here I am cleaning it off with a brass wire brush on a drill. And then the idea was to do the old weld a booger on the end of the broken bolt and then put a nut around the booger and then weld the booger to the nut. This took 5 tries. I've never had luck with this method, but this time I was actually able to make it work. But I went through 4 tiny 10 millimeter nuts first, and then I finally managed to get a 12 millimeter Home Depot galvanized nut to go on it. I think it just had more surface area to adhere to the broken bolt, but yeah, I was pretty hyped when I figured it out.
All right, we had some fun here. I have been told many times that if you have a bolt stuck in a thread, that you can just weld a nut to it. And every single time I do it, it just twists right off the bolt. So this time, I got a Home Depot galvanized nut that had the threads stripped out, so there was no galvanized coating on the inside of the threads, and I welded that. So first I built up a bead of weld on the top of the nut or the top of the bolt where the head of the bolt broke off in the trailing arm, and then once that was in there, I was able to stick this on top of the flange surface with vice grips and then weld inside of it. So I'll show you. So I had to build up the weld on the bolt right here to get the bolt to actually weld to the nut, the broken bolt. But I finally got it. So I'm gonna clean out these threads, and now we have ABS mounting, boys and girls. This wheel bearing, I'm glad that I pulled it, was actually pretty rough. I didn't have play in it, so, you know, I probably wouldn't have caught it failing until it was too late. But it definitely was pretty grimy. Like, it had a lot of grit to it when you turned it. So that was on its way out, and plus it's leaking fluid, and it looks pretty brown, that grease. So I think that was on its way out. Glad that I got to that. But we have the new ones over here, and we're gonna clean up those threads and zip it back together with some ABS sensors.
Like thick aluminum or whatever the case may be. I don't ever really need it on a 110 go up and stain or a pedestal.
All right, y'all, we hit yet another roadblock, but fear not, we always have a plan. So here are both of the brand new hubs. They are either SKF or Timken. Let's see, SKF, but they are a brand name. And Part of the problem with these aftermarket hubs is that the actual studs that go into the hubs are of a larger knurl diameter than what Honda would normally sell in many cases. So, with that being said, you can't really put a Honda ARP stud in them. I do have some Honda ARP studs for my old hub. They're in fine shape, like you can still use them, but you can see I had to weld them to the old hub just to make sure they wouldn't come off, and they still, one of them still started spinning. So I don't feel like playing that game. What I did do is I bought these eBay studs, and they have like a pretty large knurl diameter, like much larger than stock. Still larger than the ones that came out of these hubs. And I was going to run the eBay ones because I thought, whatever, they can't be that much better than an ARP. But then my buddy Alex broke his eBay studs in his budget street car, and I was like, all right. So luckily, being an instructor with NASA, I get certificates for my participation, and those certificates go to Summit Racing. So I was able to purchase for free 10 GM studs. So GM late model M12 by 1.5 studs have the correct, well, they have a larger knurl size than stock, and they're a little bit larger than these ones, but if we press them flat, it should be okay. So that's the next roadblock. I think in the meantime, though, we're going to get that next rear wheel hub taken apart.
Liter V6 oil pump pickup and used a section of that to modify this pickup. The Chevy part was $24. Now the welding was done by $60 with free shipping. It fits the engine perfectly and allows us to experiment with the turbo. Right here. As far as the part, you're looking at $2,700 to do this engine. Well, duh. But figure if you shop around, you can get a whole car from the parts. The transmission to engine adapter kit is pretty much both.
Every racing program is supposed to have change intervals for your parts. I like a loose car. Manny, who is a drifter, could not drive this car in comp school, and he's a good driver. The car was very loose for him, and I said, yeah, it's always loose. Well, this bearing is very done, and it actually had a little bit of play. So kudos to you, Manny, for finishing that race and not being last, I think, and getting your comp license because your wheel bearings were bad in the rear. Oops. All right, we're back in the garage. These are the GM late model ARP studs. I don't like that they don't have the quick thread nose. So like the ones that you buy for the Hondas, they have a quick thread nose or quick start nose. It's like a little bullet shaped nose. These are the GM ones, but they are ARP brand. And they don't drop all the way through. It's gonna be a really snug fit. Probably gonna have to get a lot of pressure on the press to get them in, but we ordered a pack of 5 each using instructor credits. So as an instructor with NASA, for participating, you get credits with Summit Racing, Hawk Performance, and VP Fuels. Although the VP Fuels one is kind of useless. So I've used it for Hawk, and now I've used it for Summit. So we're gonna press these on. So little piece of information here. Sometimes when you're pressing these studs in, especially into a used hub, they don't go in completely straight. So you have to really get on them to get the flanges of the studs lined up with the flange of the hub. So that's why I went in the basement and was test fitting it on a wheel, because I want to make sure that the studs are straight. It is possible to have them in crooked. I have done it before, and considering these are like 120 a pop, I don't want to wreck it. It's a lot of money for me. All right, well, if you're friends with me, please remind me to bring a spare rear caliper for the driver's side of my car. There you go. I ended up turning in the piston, and because it was like locking up the rear, but it might be seized. It might be on its way out. Either way, we did put that back on. This caliper was actually missing a nut or a bolt when I pulled it from the car, but you can see that, you know, the hubs are in, the rotors are on. These are non-ABS rotors, so we'll see how they work. We'll give it a go. The bias on the car was really good without ABS on this setup, front and rear, but you never know, right? I mean, so like the ABS stuff is actually designed to work with a bigger rotor in the rear, and then part of that reason, I think, is because ABS has what's called EBD. I think it's electronic brake distribution, but what it does is it locks up the rears in increments. And so if you have more stopping power in the rear than you need, what happens is the ABS modulates to that rear. The downside of that is if you have an ABS pump failure, in these cars specifically, I've seen it happen where the rears lock up real gnarly. So that when that happens, now you are stuck with the car locking up into a corner. You know what I mean? So we're going to try and make it work with the small rotors first. I really don't like the OEM sliding caliper design, but we can't go down any more rabbit holes with this car. We need to get this thing done, and that would just be another rabbit hole. So we have the stock Integra rear rotors on there now, and then we have Willwoods up front. Those will be more than fine. I actually love this kit. Super cheap, Dynalite Slims, stupid cheap. And the rotor availability is great, caliper availability is great, pad availability is great. When you can buy stuff with high availability that's a little bit less high performing than like the really exotic stuff, I always try to go with the high availability stuff. So like, for example, a differential, I'll try to go with an M factory over a Geiken, right? OS Geiken, because the OS Geiken is going to get you so much more grip, so much more adjustability, but it's in Japan, right? So anytime there's any tariffs or shipping issues or COVID happens, you're kind of screwed, right? So I like going with American products. They're easier to get. That's just me, but that's what you have to take into consideration when you're running a budget racing program, right? So like if you had the money, you could buy spares of everything and buy the expensive stuff. Then when it breaks, you put the spare in and you order another one and you wait that 3-4 months or whatever and you're good. I don't have money like that. So I'm just trying to make my lead times improved and more of a lean operation in terms of supplies and parts. But we're getting better at that too. That's all part of the racing program. There are people that grow up with a level of grooming in racing. Their parents were racers or their friends are racers. They kind of know how that program has to work. I've taught everything to myself and I've learned from a lot of mentors, but I did not grow up in a racing background. So that's one of the things. So anyway, now we got to get the rear sensors on. They bolt, as I mentioned before, to the front of the hub area, and then they wrap under and they go along the control arm into the body. So probably going to utilize the same holes that we utilize for the shock reservoirs, these external hot boys, and yeah. I'm watching the Giants score on the Eagles right now. It's wild. 6-3 Giants. That's crazy. But anyway, the car came with this OEM hole, very convenient. And I don't know where the OEM hole is for the ABS sensors, but I don't think this car came with it because, I mean, I know it came with no ABS, so maybe it's these. But rather than drill those out, what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw up a little template to cover that hole with that aluminum flashing over there. And then I'm going to drill holes in the flashing that allow for the grommets for the ABS wires to go through it. Now, for the ABS wires, there was a bracket that sat close to here, but the ASR subframe brace covers that, so you can't really bolt it to anything. But this bracket for the lower control arm will still be able to use.
Spoiler alert, that ended up not being the case. Also, check out this bird.
And then this bracket for the trailing arm we should also be able to use. So I got to go in the basement and get some spare covers for the ABS sensor. There's 2 covers. One is a metal one, like a big box. I don't have that one. But then there's like a little splash shield on the bottom of the trailing arm. So I do have that one. But these are the brackets that go to the subframe that I cannot use. So we're going to figure out a way to safely mount these, probably with P-clamps. And then the grommets are going to go up through that flashing material. But I have to draw the template first.
You're automatically high-fiving straight.
It's the next day, y'all. I want to show y'all what I did last night. I didn't record all of it just because it was like really awkward camera angles and kind of a BITC you-know-what, so let's get through it. So we'll start from the top. We have, it looks bad on camera, but in real life it looks pretty good. So, I mean, this floor is not even or anything, and I cut it out to be straight as if it weren't crushed, you know, like pushed in, and then I realized it has to be pushed in to create a seal. So we did that, then we riveted it. It's labeled, so driver wheel speed, driver rear wheel speed, passenger rear wheel speed, and then the grommets go in like OEM. I had to remove two of the metal brackets. I mentioned in one of the earlier videos that there's a bracket that goes up on the subframe, like where that sway bar is right there. I had to remove that, and then I also had to remove the ones that go on the lower control arm because it wasn't the right shape for whatever reason. So maybe it was an older one, not sure. But yeah, I think that's pretty good. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna go underneath of here, and then we're going to mark everything because we tightened up all the lower control arm bolts and all the shock bolts. But you can see I implemented some P-clamps on the body using holes that were already there, so I didn't drill anything else. And then right here we zip tied these two together just so we have some clearance. You know, if we go out off track and we snag those, we have bigger problems because they sit higher than the gas tank actually. And then we just made it so that there's some slack in here, so that way, you know, this doesn't get caught while the suspension is articulating, but gravity should hold it down, and I don't think it's gonna really rub the sway bar, but we'll keep an eye on it. It's not perfect. It was actually really difficult to do all this work, but I'm pretty happy with the bulkhead idea here. So you can see this is all RTV'd up. It uses an OEM drain hole on the trunk, and then just the plugs go in there. But anyway, y'all, I think I'm done for this video. So I hope y'all enjoyed it. We're gonna be uploading another video sometime soon. More wiring stuff on the car because it still needs the wiring all finished. But I appreciate y'all watching. Share the video and do the stuff that makes the video take off, hopefully. Peace.